the very first, like, well, it's been a few hours officially, but our first few hours, of course, of NaNoWriMo writing month, which is when people write essentially a novel-length manuscript. It will be my fifth, I believe, fifth year. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's in my fourth or fifth year, and I think I'm a four-time NaNoWriMo winner, which is when you take the month of November, which is also No Shave November. It's a couple of different things, and you just don't write. But you sit down and nano write, meaning like you write a couple hundred words here. Because if you do the math of writing, and I've written about the math of writing, which is the number game. Like, you don't really need to accomplish the goal to truly be a winner at NaNoWriMo. So long as you actually come up with an idea, started the idea, and perpetually began the idea, you are in your own way a winner. I mean, it's not a tournament. It's a personal goal, and I like personal goals. I actually used to make mine 100,000 words within a month, and November is a decent month. It's got 30 days in it, and you use every single day. You write about 12 to 500 words a day. 1,200 to 500 words minimum a day. You're gonna win by about 3 weeks in, and give you some editing time. A lot of books aren't just 50,000 words, of course. Depending on the subject, depending on the genre, if you're writing a kid's book, of course, 50,000 words might actually even be too much. Especially a children's book, like, or even high-low. And you have to think that writing, in general, we'll get into this as well, so you're not just staring at a screen, but writing in general is one of those perpetual things where if you go forward and you're actually able to, complete a personal goal, you're more likely to see the actual project through and want to see it come to fruition through some sort of actual, publication or maybe some type of share system. Of course, self-publication is great. Wow, one personal? Oh, Bink. Yep, good old Bink. Love Bink Deadpool. You guys should definitely watch his stuff. He's really funny. It's really, akin to actual video games. Funny, I don't know if he ever told you guys this, but what he originally wanted to do, like sketch comedy and comedy writing. I don't know if he ever told you that. It's not a big secret, really, because you could tell by the way he holds himself throughout his actual streams. So I like Bink. I always try to support him in some way because he really loves doing this. I like playing video games and I like sharing it, but I don't take it too serious anymore. I do take my blog serious, which unfortunately has not had a new update in a while. As many of you already know, my mother passed away several months ago, and I've just not been... That's why I'm glad it's NaNoWriMo, because no matter how... I don't want to say lazy, but how distraught I was for writing. I always wrote when she was alive. I absolutely adored writing. She loved that I wrote. Believed all mothers, they push their children, but regardless, she always thought I would be, somewhat of a talented writer. In Leo to her passing, I have not really published anything, or on the blog, or even in general, written some, but regardless, this is now NaNoWriMo, and I'm glad it's here. And in regards to what we've been talking about since the beginning, that is NaNoWriMo, and it's about 50,000 words within the month, and towards a book. I mean, it doesn't even have to be a book you start this year. It can be a book that you've had started, you've put away. Maybe it's time to actually finish it. 50,000 words towards the completion of your work. Regardless if it's new, if it's 20 years old, if it's 5 days old. It doesn't matter. Normally, I do it the traditional way. Start it, take the month of October to plan it, write it in November, edit it by February, and try to get it out there. Of course, naturally, I haven't done that yet. Editing is the true math of writing, and I can't stand editing. Nobody should ever edit their own work either, because it's just... it's just very difficult. But having written for so long and never publishing, you kind of get the forlorn feeling that you're never going to get there. So I understand that. I understand that emotional distraught. And what really irks me more is that I've always been frustrated by the idea of, like, okay, maybe it's not going to go somewhere. But at the same time, I also write because I love to write. I don't think I'll ever truly give up on writing. I don't think it's impossible. You have to write, essentially, somewhere. You know, whether you have to do a speech, whether, you know, even if you don't necessarily work for a place that requires speech or writing or documentation of any sort, there may be a time in your life when you really have to get up, write something out, do a speech in front of a couple of people. Not really hard to do. I've never really had issues with public speaking because, one, it doesn't really affect me. Like, what are they going to do? Think I'm stupid? If I'm standing up there talking to them, I'm not stupid. You know, it depends on what I'm talking about, of course. Anybody can sound stupid on a subject they have not prepared to speak on. Which is kind of what, segues into what I wanted to do for NaNoWriMo. My original intention, and it may still be my intention, I've yet to officially start it, but my original intention was to do a sort of biography-based, historically accurate, nearly non-fiction. Maybe the only thing that would keep it from being truly non-fiction is some personalization of it, but I wanted to write a book about Dante Alighieri, one of my favorite subjects in all of medieval history, let alone history, really. He wrote the comedy, La Commedia, as you may know from either college or even high school, that it stood for the comedy. Became Giovanni Boccaccio, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, then also, turned it into an actual piece of true divine art, calling it the Divine Comedy, rather than just the comedy. It became the Divine Comedy. But I don't even know if Dante himself would have approved of that. So, while we discuss, we're going to jump into some quick play. Now, I'm not going to rant about Dante. That's not the point. The point is that that's what I was originally intending to do. A lot of research, a shit ton of research I would have to do. I mean, I would have to read books, and I said, you know what? That's a good project to have, and it would take me years to really perfect it to the point where, okay, am I seriously going to publish this? So, I'm going to stick with fiction then, because I like fiction. Not because it's easier to write. In fact, sometimes it's quite harder to write, but at least when it comes to developing the characters, developing the process, it has to come from me and some root sources that I might already have. Ironically, I found out more about what my characters are going to do and what my story is going to be simply by writing. Nothing else is far further from the truth when it comes to nonfiction. Nonfiction, everything is textbook documented. Unless you're doing primary sources, you're never, ever going to find that. So let's jump in here.
Now enter hero. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero.
I'm gonna go Reaper. Feels appropriate because it was just officially, Halloween officially ended yesterday. For me, it kind of sticks around a little. It lingers a little bit in the morning. So, what makes me laugh is that, as I was saying, I wanted to do that. So, I think I'm going to stick with fiction this year. But the point is, 50,000 words is quite a bit. When I wasn't having a full-time position, I would write about 10,000 words in like the first 5 days and be done with it. 10,000 words a day for the first 5 days, and officially end it early, so I can actually write the book, edit it, and do everything in 1 month if I really needed to. Of course, my hands would kill me by the end of the month, but I would soak them. I've written 3 books, technically. Let me think. First one, yeah. So this would be my 4th year. I plan on actually participating, and I plan on actually being a winner. So it's going to be interesting.
3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming.
And, you know, for me, it's also... Well, oh, wow. Wow, that was terrible. Oh, that Widowmaker is nasty. Put it right on my head. Okay. I didn't mean to do that, but it's close enough.
My ultimate is charged. Enemy turret destroyed. Group up with me.
Okay. I keep forgetting that when the season officially like starts over, everybody's in these in here. But so what else can we discuss real quick? So if you're looking for like any type of motivation, I know playing the video game ironically is kind of a form of motivation. I've also been reading several books though. The best motivator is to sit down. It's not to just actually. It's not to sit down and just stare at a blank screen. That just gives you, you know, nervous. Not nervousness necessarily, but you get this fear that you're not actually doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're just like, oh my goodness, I'm just sitting here doing absolutely nothing. It gives you like false, kind of a false sense of like, hey, why am I just sitting here, not typing? You know, it gives you this insecurity, this unnecessary insecurity is probably what I'm getting at most. That's the best way to describe it. So I don't tell people just sit there and write, because that just doesn't work. I mean, maybe when I was younger, I would motivate myself that way, but it just doesn't work that way. And quite frankly, it's just not a good way to do NaNoWriMo. So what I do for NaNoWriMo now, I map it out sometimes, or I'll sit down and think, okay, what's the best way to go about this? I'll do other stuff to try to emulate what I should do. Of course they get it.
Stop the payload.
Wow. I should have flanked. Anyway. 2 kills. That's usually okay for Reaper at this point. But what's the next thing that entails what you gotta do? You kind of have a great deal of work that needs to go into it. So what's the trick? The trick is don't just sit there and assume something's just gonna magically pop out of you, because no writer does that unless they're like godly. I mean, I've done it maybe twice in my life, and it actually, one time it worked out, the other time it was just, I'm writing just to write. Didn't like the story, didn't like where I was going, hated it actually. It was some type of purgatory concept, like in between death, life, and all that, and I didn't like it. I mean, it's like, it's been done, but, you know, just because it's been done doesn't mean it's not done right. And it wasn't done right. I had some interesting pieces in it, don't get me wrong. But nothing that excelled the story, nothing that even said it had a story. I've written better, and I was very upset with it. So when I wrote out the original concept for the first NaNoWriMo book I ever did, I actually took it serious. When I wrote its sequel, I did the exact same thing, and both of them, and I still have to finish the sequel. I'm only I got like 80,000 words into it, and I got about, I don't know, I would say maybe, I don't know, 20 to 30,000 words away from actually completing it. So I'll probably take this year even, if I get some time, and finish some of those books. The problem is, I don't like writing a full sequel out until I've actually finished publishing the first book. Makes sense, right? The theory is, you don't want to completely close off an entire book beforehand. Alright, I'm switching. I have to give it my undivided attention if I'm going to play a character I'm just not that good at. Alright. See, that's what happens when I go my main. But people think, like, video games are, useless, and believe it or not, I've been inspired by quite a few games, sci-fi. Remember, you don't have to write Shakespearean pieces. You got to write something that may eventually sell. It doesn't take a noggin, or even half a noggin, to write most sci-fi. Now that's unfortunate too, but it's true. You don't have to be a genius to write that sort of work. You don't have to be a genius to write even half of the stuff that gets published and is, more importantly, popular. The truth is, speaking above your audience doesn't get you when you merit with your audience, because in the end, no matter how smart you are, no matter how deep your vocabulary is, you're going to have to sell it to somebody who wants to read it. And the masses read books. The masses. Now, granted, that doesn't mean you have to write it like it's dumb. A lot of people are somewhat educated on many subjects. So it's not like you're going to be dealing with people who are just, professionals. But there's, amateurs as well. So you could have amateur tool makers and write a book about tool making. You can have professional tool makers who will also see it the same way and use it for entertainment. The point is, you can't write on the basis of just writing for a superior, elite audience. It doesn't work. And also, you have to have fun. That's how fiction works in general. Of course, non-fiction is a completely different subject, but you get my point. He had his ult. Two minutes.
You have my thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm sure he was not talking to me, but I did kind of chase them off, and I got a double kill out of it. How the hell did you lose? I don't want to know. But in conclusion to this point, that is precisely what I like to do. What I like to do is simply write and enjoy the writing that I'm doing. Granted, even if I hate the book when it comes out, I enjoyed the writing, and I also learned something about myself. What I learned is that I'm not necessarily going to write a perfect novel every time. I'm going to have a lot of garbage. But you know what? Those garbages are still learning, and you're still learning how to, truly do it proper. And it's not impossible to just sit back, relax, and just write. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of NaNoWriMo as well. That is kind of the point, actually. It's to emphatically finish something, you know, start something and hopefully get it close to finish, if not finish it entirely. So it's a personal goal. But I love NaNoWriMo. 4th year. I speak a lot about it. I speak a lot about writing because not only do I love to write, but I'm passionate for other writers. I would love to see writers of the next generation be greater than myself, be current popular writers. Because it is impeccable. Sorry. Give me a second. It is imperative that we have writing, we have art, we have all these things, because what's the point? Then all we're doing is working. We're not doing anything that makes life life. We need entertainment. It's unfortunate, but we need it. I know some people would rather work their entire lives and be, you know, ironically, for me, writing is work to an extent. Wow. Wow. Who was on the point? Anyhow, writing is itself, you know, on the point. Wow. Well, that was bad. So, what else is there? No, I'm not joining teams. So, I like that you jump right into another game usually.
Now
Oh, well, of course, now we're attacking. We won't do too bad on that. I usually go defense soldier, that's the problem. That's what messed me up.
I think you win.
Okay, so NaNoWriMo.org, which is NaNoWriMO, M as in moose, O is the N, not N-O. NaNoWriMo. .org is where you can sign up. You know, you can talk to other writers, you can talk to other players, you know, players in the game of life of the genres. A lot of people choose science fiction, a lot of romance, western, believe it or not. A lot of people do some amazing work, and better writers than even I. But I do like it. I truly do. I finally got that Cthulhu skin. I'm so happy about that. Alright, so we're going to take a break from the writing talk for a second. The first year I've actually had internet where I could stream, and I've been loving the streaming. I'll be doing YouTube videos, like, at least once a week. I think it's going to take me about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to actually write this thing. Because I got to really, really sit down and just say, okay, what am I writing? It's a tough question, because even I'm not entirely sure what I want to do.
Prepare to attack. Select your hero.
But,
I think you win. Bye.
Capture the objective.
Made Diva look like she had a mohawk. Okay. So, yeah, I'm not giving up on you guys here. I'm just trying to think what I was going to say next. Now, we're going to take a break from that, but I figured also I want to add this, is that I wrote about 200,000 words one year, and I decided to also add like a 50,000 word journal, which I published the majority of it on my website, which is Malacost Editorial, and you can see that the MKX Editorial.blogspot.com. For some reason, it tries to cut that, but I tricked it. Screw them. So, yeah, the Malacost Editorial, I would recommend going back and just typing in the search bar NaNoWriMo, and you'll get quite a bit of what I did. I did a couple of NaNoWriMo journals. One time I was just so tired, I just didn't do it. I do them at the end of the day, usually, after I've been writing, and I'm, like, my hands are killing me, because I do about 10,000 to 15,000 words a day. The first day, I can get up to 15,000 to 20,000 words. And, son of a bitch, that was just stupid. But, yeah, I would recommend just, you know, seeing what people wrote about NaNoWriMo. I mean, somebody's going to probably write a NaNoWriMo book eventually, which would be awesome. What a bitch. Oh well. So, yeah, that's pretty much mostly what I was going to talk about. Kind of hard to really talk about anything until I've actually done work. But how is it to do NaNoWriMo? I guess if you're a first timer and you're watching, and you happen to like Overwatch, I guess, and you're talking about NaNoWriMo, and, you know, I just need a video to go over. I just don't feel like showing my beautiful mug right now. But what would I say is the best way to approach it? Take October and seriously write out something that's going to, how would I put it? How would I describe it? What would be the thing you have to write out? Write out an actual thing, like what you're going to do. Like an outline, I don't care, a diagram, a Venn diagram, I don't care what you do. Any type of serious writing tool, write it out, compare and contrast what you're going to do, set your goal for the year, or the month, and remember also major holidays are coming up, so plan around them. I usually try my damnedest to be finished by Thanksgiving, and most of the time I am. Or just accept the fact that you're going to take Thanksgiving off, and from there you decide, okay, well, Thanksgiving's off. What do I do? You know? And what you do there is plan around it. That's what I do. I do plan around it. I try to get most things finished by that. So, NaNoWriMo in general is it's not difficult to do. It really isn't. If you like writing, you could do 50,000 words in a month. I mean, you would be surprised how much, if you text, you'd be absolutely shocked within a month how much you're writing. 50,000 just sounds like a really big scary word, but or number, but it's really not. I mean, 50,000 words. I probably spoke over 50,000 words at this point, discussing it. But if you're new, my best bet for you is plan it out. If you're writing something that requires a great deal of information like I wanted to, and of course I, being the procrastinator that I am, forgot to really... I did some research. I know a little bit more about Dante than I did before, but not enough to write an entire book about him, especially like a couple of 100 pages. So, what I would say is write it out. map it out. If you want to write about a certain subject matter, like nonfiction subjects, start even in September researching. Read up on your subject. If you want to do fiction, take all of October. I would even say don't be scared to take September too, to actually write it out and say, you know what, I'm going to have this book planned before it's even,
Don't worry, I got this.
before I'm even going to sit down to write chapter 1 or page 1. Not everybody uses chapters anymore too. Chapters are kind of like an old-fashioned thing. Most modern books don't even have them.
Bailing out.
And that's okay, though. It really is okay. So, what you do is you write it out, and I'm okay with that.
Time to be young to die.
So, after that, how do you engage yourself? Well, you got to find a place that you feel comfortable. Obviously, if you're gonna type it out, if you're gonna write it the old-fashioned way, if you're gonna write it with pen and paper, bless you if you really are. But you are far more braver than I. But if you're going to do it that way, just go into a room, tell people you're not. If you're like one of those people who, like, the family has to be up their ass, especially if you're younger, I get it. Like, I was lucky. My family never got up my ass about writing. My mother knew, don't bother me when I'm typing. Very rarely did she ever bother me when I was typing. Not that she ever was a bother, of course. This is more just in lieu to the idea of being, able to finish typing up that 50,000. After that 50,000, I didn't give a shit if I actually finished the book or not. Most of the times I did, though. I think 1 out of the 3 times. So I plan on kind of finishing this book. Or I could just literally write every other book. How do you get that again so fast? That's a good question, but whatever. You screwed it up. So yeah, that's what I recommend people do. Whatever. Alright. Before I actually get up here, or get all up, I'm actually gonna do the season. I'm gonna do a season game, a competitive game. But I want to conclude. Thank you for listening. I know this has been an awkward conversation to have while playing the game. I doubt I did either one perfectly. That's a joke. Of course, I did terrible. But yeah, I mean, it's not really hard. I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, in a way, it's more like pseudoscience. So, when you go to finish, or go to start, know that there are steps. Plan each day. Make a schedule. Use an old-fashioned writing notebook. That's what I used to do. Plan it out. Take it with a grain of salt, and accept the fact that there's actually a slim chance you're going to finish. I've been writing for nearly 20 years. Longer than that, actually. And I'll tell you, the first book I ever wrote took me about 6 months. 6 months to finish. It was about 80 to 90,000 words. Once I discovered I could write that much, the next one took me about 4 months. I am now able to write an entire book in about 8 to 10 days. Practice makes perfect, and don't worry about the little minor mistakes. You're not going to get hung up on them. If you get hung up on them, you're never going to succeed. You're never going to finish. So don't worry about that. Editing can come later. You have to get the book out. In fact, editing slows down the flow. That's like, stopping to edit is like going at 65 miles an hour and stopping because there's a twig in the road. And then crawling over it, and then confusing about how fast you should keep going now. Oh, should I watch out for every single twig that's in the road? No, you don't. Some twigs you gotta watch. Those are called branches. When those fall into the road, then you stop for a second and go back. Maybe assess the situation. Maybe call in some help, or you move the branch and you continue on. That's the best analogy I can come up with on the fly. Of course, lastly, the best way to write and to approach writing is not just map out the subject, not just figure out, okay, what am I going to write, how am I going to write it. You can't do that. Best way to do it is to not just jump in, and although I told you to map it out, the other most important thing is that doesn't work for everybody. So, if you can't just map it out, try to think of circumstances. Create characters, create worlds, design things. Even if it's not fantasy, you still got to design the world around it. Even if you're basing it in Chicago, you should know Chicago. At least to an extent before you use the city as a backdrop. One of my short stories was turned into like a novella. I used Chicago as a backdrop. I didn't even reference anything but Chicago. I talked about maybe like one park that was in Chicago. But that was a novella. If you're going to write an entire book that's based there, you need to know where people hang out, what people are doing. Why are they in Chicago? Why are they doing the things they are? And why does Chicago mean anything to you? Of course, you don't have to symbolize the entire city. But is there only things that happen there? You know, like in New York, if you want to base it in Menlo Park, for example, which is in New York. Say you're writing something like around the time of maybe Edison in Menlo Park, right? You're going to have to know at least some of the stuff that he did in Menlo Park, if you're especially using him as maybe a character in your book. Of course, you can completely go the opposite way, but it's not going to be received as well. But I always like the idea of knowing my area before I even do anything else with it. Knowing what I'm doing, what I'm writing. I don't like going in with no map. Now, granted, there are times in the road of life where not having a map will lead you to wonders you never expected, but when it comes to writing, that is far and few in between, where those moments really, you know, excel your work. So, I've been talking for nearly 40 minutes here. Actually, I've been talking for 40 minutes here. So, I'll just end it with this then. And I am concluding here. And I will be doing more accurate speeches on it. But this is my first official one. I'll be doing these maybe once a week. Maybe more, depending on the progress, depending on what I'm doing. So, if I don't, I'm most likely not going to do the Dante book. So, I'm going to be doing another fiction novel. This one may not be publishable at the moment. So, what I'm going to try to do is that. So, anyway, that's what I'm doing. If you watch this, please leave a like. I will be doing things that are not video game based here, of course. This is not any reference to anything. I just happen to be playing Overwatch and figured I want to talk about NaNoWriMo. I just don't want to be on camera at the moment, but I will be doing face-to-face things. I'll try to live stream from my YouTube account onto like an iPad or something like that, so we can actually have discussions during NaNoWriMo, just to keep you motivated, just to keep myself motivated as well. So it's a mutual thing, mutually beneficial. So with that said, thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe. I will be doing NaNoWriMo in its own section. It will not be video game based, I promise. This is the only one that I will be doing video game based. I may mention it in other gaming things, but this is my first official Nano blog-ish kind of thing, discussion. Anyway, thanks again for watching.